I was looking at
for
the
this
beer.
year.
I was like, oh,
And
that's
the beers on this side. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I got a new one because my birthday was recently in June.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thank you. So that one, that's the
Cool.
latest one to the collection. I have to drink this at some point, of course.
Oh, otherwise they
So
will
they
go
kind of
bad
start going
eventually.
and disappearing. Otherwise, they will
We
go
can
bad
tell how
eventually.
stressful the month has been
Yeah,
based off of the
that's
number of
true.
beers you have left on here.
Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Simon. I am Cloud Therapist. This is the July 2025 episode of Cloud State of Play. Now, your eyes are not deceiving you. Paul Bevan, my regular guest, is actually not with me for this month. He's actually somewhere enjoying some sunshine and putting his feet up and drinking his favorite gin and tonic, I think, is his favorite drink. Maybe doing a bit of sightseeing as well. Yeah, the sight of that or the thought of that is just kind of frightening enough. So we'll maybe leave it. We'll maybe leave it there. But yes, Paul is on a break from Class State of Play. I think you guys, if anybody watched the previous episode of June episode, you probably checked out on that and noticed that. But anyway, this means while the cat is away, the mice can play, as the saying goes. So I have an opportunity to bring some new guests into this segment. So hopefully we'll have some more guests lined up next, maybe, I don't know, maybe next couple of months. We'll see how it goes. And if Paul ever decides to come back, who knows? Maybe he's out for good. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, so for this month, I have, well, it's absolutely my pleasure to welcome Sarah as my special guest on Class State of Play. Yeah, so let's say hello to Sarah. Sarah, how are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. I love being back with you. I'm yeah, doing well. I'm a little jealous that I'm not sending myself someplace with a gin and tonic, but here I am. Must work.
That makes two of us, although it'll probably be a mojito for me, not a G&T, but there you go.
Oh. Well, what
Okay.
would it be? Maybe some bubbles, I guess, on my end.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, I could join you with that after a few mojitos. I'll have anything at that point. So I'll be just fine, I think. I'll be just fine. Okay.
Wow.
So Sarah, quick intro to you, please, and kind of, role and what you've been up to and what do you kind of do, and then we can kick off from there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm currently a principal director with Red Hat. I'm working for them and helping some of their customers reorient, modernize, help them everything from team organization straight through to what's the best way to tackle some of the new technologies that are coming out onto the market, and how does that benefit them in the long run. Um, and I come from traditionally financial services, so I've been around the banking sector a bit before moving to the dark side, as we like to say, on the vendor side, as a field CTO for HashiCorp. So very much within that kind of automation space and platform engineering.
Fantastic. Okay, well, welcome to Cloud Therapist. It's not
Thank
your
you.
first time. It's not your first rodeo, as they say.
It is not. We
Oh,
we got to spend some great time together in
we
London a
did.
few weeks ago. That was
We
so much
did.
fun.
We did. We had
Good time.
a great time in London. Some very peculiar characters, as you'll probably see from the videos, depending on when you're watching. This is either on the channel already or will be coming out at some point. But yeah, so yeah, Sarah's no stranger to Cloud Therapist. She's the first time in Class State to Play, so
It's true.
welcome for that. And yeah, let's get going.
Thanks.
So the other thing I wanted to mention to you guys is that this episode marks the 3rd year anniversary of Class State to Play. Yes, we've been going for that long. Me and Paul can't believe we've managed to keep going for 3 years. It's a wonderful occasion. It's a shame Paul is not here. Paul, maybe we'll catch you in the next few months and then maybe we can celebrate again. But this is the 3rd year anniversary of Class State to Play. So yeah, it's actually been really interesting for something that actually started just rather flippantly and kind of very casual as a discussion. It's kind of really sort of developed into, sort of the last 3 years. And yeah, I've enjoyed kind of, doing all the episodes with Paul, pick on all the different topics and kind of go back and forth on them. It's a free form kind of, segment, which is, I think, the the best part of Cloud State of Play. So anyway, I thought we'll do a quick highlights of the last sort of 12 months. If you guys haven't watched any of the previous episodes, you can actually go back and check them out. They're all on the Cloud Therapist channel. There should be playlists as well available, so you can go back even further. And actually, believe it or not, I was looking when I was reviewing the previous episodes. I noticed actually that a lot of the discussions that we have in terms of the topics, they're not really aged that much. There's still lots of kind of things around, cloud, and there's like AI, there's sovereignty, lots of data stuff, because we got quite obsessed around data last year. So a lot of that stuff is still relevant. So although actually some of the episodes, are maybe showing their age now, a lot of the content actually is very relevant and still, still debatable and still sort of ongoing at the moment. So anyway, let's go through some of the highlights, and then we'll kick off with Sarah on our usual 3 topics, as we usually have. So some highlights from the last 12 months. In the July 2024 episode, we talked about the Labour government's impact on the tech sector as the Labour government got elected and came into power. We looked at the future of open source software. Now, Sarah, you may know a little bit about this, because this was because all of the license changes that were happening sort of last year and still seem to be ongoing.
Yeah.
And then we got obsessed a little bit about data. So it was data and the cloud, a marriage made in heaven or hell was the question for that one. See, the titles are quite interesting. We're quite cheeky with the titles, so that was good fun to do. And then in August, we talked about what happened in August, in July and August. Big major event, outage. What was it, Sarah? Do you remember?
No, I don't.
CrowdStrike.
Oh, yeah, I was stuck in an airport.
So you see, you were affected by it. Okay, so we talked about in August the CrowdStrike outage. I think the subtitle was "What the F happened," and then we talked a little bit about cloud repatriation in the same episode. And actually, there was a State of Cloud Strategy survey report from HashiCorp that we went through as well. And September, we went back to data, talked about data fabric this time, a little bit about microservice architecture, where that was the only game in town. October, sovereign clouds, so way ahead of everybody else, picking up on all of these sort of independent cloud vendors and sovereign clouds, and sovereignty being a topic. We were well ahead of everybody else in October talking about sovereignty. November, we talked about back to data again. It was data platform. What is the data platform this time? Intel with woes inside. So that was one of the other topics that we talked about, and Intel's recent problems. December, we looked at cloud networking. We called it the undiscovered country, because there's so few people doing cloud network management. So we talked a little bit about that again, picked up on cloud networking there. And then in the January is a review episode, but in the February episode, we talked about different clouds. So we actually looked at different types of clouds. I think we went pretty much through everything. We looked at Meta's global infrastructure design. We looked at the shift left sort of soundbite, where everything seems to be shifting left. And then in March, we looked at Gartner's How to Succeed in Digital Transformation report. That was quite interesting. And we went back to one of the previous different clouds that we looked at, which was edge computing, and went into a little bit more detail in regards to edge computing. What is edge computing? And then in the April episode, we looked at the future is quantum computing and edge AI. So there you go.
Wow.
It's official, Sarah. That's it.
I feel like that is very future based off of where I
know,
sit.
it's like, yes. But the guy was writing I remember the article. So clearly we weren't very enamored with the article, but the article was kind of writing as if it's like, yeah, it's going to happen tomorrow. Okay, right, sure.
I don't know. I don't know about Paul, but I may be a little bit more pessimistic than of a therapist than Paul is. But
yes, don't worry, we were both extremely pessimistic on that one.
Excellent.
So next one, still in April, was the OpenStack gets rescued by the Linux Foundation, and it really is a rescue. I don't care what the marketing says. And then in May, we looked at this is my favorite topic: IT shills and the access media in the IT industry.
Okay.
So a little bit of a rant on my side, which I think was, yes, I think I was kind of had it up to here with influencers and IT shills. We also looked at the FinOps report. Some really weird stuff came out of that. Some very strange reporting or conclusions. If you wanted to see what I'm talking about, either check out Class to Play May episode, or I think I have now released that particular topic as an unfiltered episode. So check it out on its own in the unfiltered segment. And then the last month we looked at really searching for the right level of uptime for business services. So what are the worry levels for you and things like that. So we looked at all the sort of mean time between failures and all the other kind of stuff, SLIs and SLOs and everything else that goes along with that. So that's the last 12 episodes of Class State of Play.
You guys have really covered a lot of ground.
We did, and we usually do. We do a shed load of research, so much research that actually, well, most of the audience knows by now. I don't have time to really copy and paste all of that stuff into the description of the video because YouTube only allows me 5,000 characters. So then I have to go to the comments section of each video and add the rest of my research in there because I do so much research. So there you go.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway, so that's the last 12 episodes. All these are available right now on the Cloud Therapist channel, so please go and check them out. And as we said, a lot of the content is still very much relevant. You'll see some of them actually coming out as we said, as unfiltered episodes as well, so you can actually check out that segment. There should be a playlist for that as well. So this month's topics, we're going to move on to that. Now, Sarah and I have, again, 3 new topics, as we usually do every month. Sarah picked on one of those, so we'll go through them. And actually, Sarah provided one of the topics that she wants to go through. So let's check them out. So, first topic: multi-tenancy at the application layer. This is interesting. A post that came out that caught my eye, which I thought was quite interesting in terms of how you can actually do multi-tenancy in various environments prior to production. So we'll get to that. KPMG, second topic, KPMG have a massive The Futures Report 2025. It's actually very detailed, and although I managed to kind of get a summary out of it, there's tons of stuff in there, so we're most likely not going to do it any credit here. But there's lots of really good information in there. So we'll again break that down for you. That's the KPMG The Futures Report 2025. And the third one, which Sarah chose, is automation versus RPA versus AI agents. So again, there's lots of different articles on this. I think we kind of maybe settled on one or two, but essentially we're going to go through and talk about automation, RPA, and AI agents. Right. So let's do the first one, which is multi-tenancy at the application layer. Now, as I said, this was actually an article that came out on the news stack. So again, I'll drop the link in the description. And it's, it was interesting. I think it only came out in May, so it caught my eye quite recently, by a guy called Arjun Ayer. Who is the CEO of Signadot or Synadot. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, so apologies if I'm getting all of that wrong and butchering the names and the name of the company. But yeah, interesting article. The premise seems to be about having your dev, test, and QA staging or pre-prod, as some people call it, environments all being kind of the same mold, same design, same architecture, same look and feel. So really kind of making those pre-production environments as standardized as possible in order to, I guess, make it easier to deploy, to build, and to provision them to developers and whoever else wants to use them. And do the separation between the different projects that you want to develop and test and QA and what have you, do that isolation at an app layer. So actually kind of go up to the app layer and do the isolation through there. So whatever that means, we'll explore a little bit of that and maybe the potential of what that means. I think the article actually itself did not make that very clear. But I guess that's maybe kind of saying, well, you need to come and talk to us at Signadot, and maybe we'll give you the answer. We maybe have a solution for you, Mr. Customer. So there you go. Sarah, what was your take on the article?
So I thought it was a really interesting article, because I think it's something we've discussed as an industry for quite some time now, especially once you start getting into like cluster applications and running containers and things like that. I know probably 6, 7 years back now, we were running Kubernetes clusters, and the question was, well, do we have to have a single cluster for each individual team or each individual kind of
Right.
work stream? Or can we look at some sort of multi-tenancy? So I think the idea of multi-tenancy becomes really interesting within particularly containerization, because you do have that segmentation that's going to allow you to do that in a relatively secure manner. I the article is a little vague to me as well, and I'm not sure if it's, hey, use like one cluster and then segment by like
Yeah.
QA, dev, staging, etc. Or
Mm.
does it mean, no, let's just use like one massive cluster, lots of people, lots of different applications, and then all of these different environments on top of that? I could see the benefit in both of those things. One thing that always makes me a little bit nervous, though, is, and I think you probably talked about this in one of your previous sessions, is the networking piece of this. Because
Mm.
anytime you do something a little bit different in networking, that's where things typically seem to go a little bit wrong. Um,
Yeah, usually does.
so my preference is keep the networking the same. If you need to make the compute a little bit smaller or that kind of thing a little different, do that, but maybe don't mess with the networking part of it.
Yeah, let's not tinker with that too much.
Yeah, I know exactly. But then the other thing I think that they evoke here, which is really interesting, is that we're using like the distributed architecture across
Hmm.
applications and doing that relatively well. But then the like functional requirements, like testing, they say in this
Mm.
one, remains pretty siloed and very centralized. And so they talk a little bit about that mismatch between these two different things and how can you kind of unify um, your functional requirements and your non-functional requirements.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
definitely a
yeah,
pitfall.
yeah. I mean, I think he does go on later on in the article, so we're kind of jumping a little bit ahead. But
Mm,
he does go on in the article later and say, there are sort of specialist workloads or something, and there's like a hybrid
yeah,
sort of possibility as well. But so we're definitely kind of talking about the dev environment, the test or QA environment, and then the staging of the pre-production environment just prior to prior to production.
mm-hmm.
So he's seeing that. I think the one of the main points the article said was that there seems to be a drift happening between kind of these environments themselves and what is expected in sort of cloud native architectures and microservices architecture.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of maybe agree with that. I suppose that's
Oh
true
yeah,
to a point, and lends itself to what you were saying about um, you know. So do we put everything in one cluster? So clearly, probably not, because some stuff will just need kind of virtual machines, somewhere, either in the data center or in the cloud or whatever you're
mm-hmm.
running. Whereas others are actually, containerized applications. So we will need like a Kubernetes cluster, blah blah blah,
Yeah,
to do that. So he's saying that this is undermining the flexibility of cloud native deployment. So to what degree? Again, it doesn't go into a lot of detail about sort of numbers or sort of mismatches that may happen, or how long does it take to build something, because all the environments are different and we're
mm-hmm.
having to kind of maybe linearly go through each one to build it as the project moves along towards sort of production. I don't know, but it just kind of seems to be something around sort of how we can make those consistent.
Yeah. I think the consistency is key, and it's something. in my experience, that is frequently missing. And it can be quite difficult also because if you have an organization who's been around for a long time, obviously they're going to have accrued a fair amount of legacy. It's not always easy to
Mm,
weed that out because I think, again, if you go back to like financial services, like their crown jewels almost across the board are on mainframe.
mm,
And that's, I mean, more or less as legacy as you can get. How do you abstract these things out and make sure that there's that consistency there?
yeah.
You're seeing now, I read an article somewhere the other day that GitLab is now available for mainframe. Um,
Right.
so you're like, well,
Okay.
okay, we're moving in that direction for some of these more legacy systems,
Yeah.
but also, is that what you want? Like, there's so many different things that kind of move into that. But again, it's not easy. It's not something you just roll out from one day to the next and say, "Hey, I have consistency across the board, and I can manage these all with multi-tenancy." And do you even want to be able to manage those all with multi-tenancy?
Yeah,
There may be a case
exactly.
there too that you don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that GitLab was kind of a SaaS solution, so you wouldn't need to really install it anywhere. But anyway, okay, so yeah, so what else? So he does mention actually the likes of Uber and Lyft, the kind of the auto driving
Mm,
vehicle companies actually do use this so-called application layer isolation, or ALI or ALI, I guess, if you want
hmm
to call it that. And the idea is kind of to create a baseline for all environments.
hmm
And this, I guess, this is what I was saying about sort of, they all pretty much start the same, but then they can vary. It depends on kind of what the needs are for the project or the needs for the environment itself.
hmm
Um, okay, so yeah, so these are, I mean, normally these would be kind of different, environments, and I don't know. I mean, I would expect the baseline to always be the same. If you're kind of in the data center, you're likely doing stuff on VMware or something like OpenShift. So, that would be, I would presume that to be my sort of baseline, really, and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, the other thing in in organizations like Uber and Lyft is they started relatively greenfield and not so long ago.
Mm,
Um, and
true,
so
very true.
they're also engineering companies at their heart. So they are
Mm,
there to provide data or to create data and analyze data. And so they need to be able to be agile and have that immutable infrastructure that supports them so that they can do things like that. And when that infrastructure no longer suits them, they need to be able to tear that down and build something new and constantly evolve. That's not necessarily the model for the rest of the world. And when you're working with, again, the more regulated organizations, or even organizations who want to be engineering led but don't necessarily have the financial wherewithal of a company
mm,
like Uber, Netflix, Spotify, things like that, you're not going to be able to follow those same standards. So then
sure.
putting in those baselines, I think, becomes even more critical to make sure that you do have the same environment across the board so that when something does go wrong or you need to patch a 0 day or something like that, you have the ability to access these environments. But
Mm,
it's also going to give you then an indicator of what kind of load do you have and what is your performance ability, and like, are you having to, well, can you even do performance testing on a non-production workload? Because
yes.
I don't particularly care to do performance testing
Yeah.
on a production workload.
Yes. That's true.
um, I don't want my engineers to be doing chaos
No,
engineering in production, you know? Like,
that's true. That's true. That's true.
so
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the first thing I sort of asked was, why would you want to do this? And I think the article does get to it. It says it's to it realigns the testing practices with modern distributed. This is a quote, by the way.
Mm,
Realigns testing practices with modern distributed architectures, restoring key microservices benefits
mm,
and enabling faster, more reliable deployments. So as we said, that kind of I mentioned that sort of misalignment earlier on,
mm,
right? Between kind of the what the apps and the architecture wants to do the actual testing environments themselves. And maybe to a degree they've kind of been neglected, not kind of done in the same way. But I would have thought that with the advent of infrastructure as code and sort of that type of automation, this sort of thing would be, just deploy it once, deploy it twice, deploy it as many times as you like.
Oh, I wish
Kind
that
of
was the
thing.
case. No,
So yeah.
There's best practice and there's what you should do, and then I
Yeah.
think there's what is reality.
Mm.
And unfortunately, very few organizations are in a place where they can execute on best practices, for example. And having those homogenous infrastructure and across the different types of environments. I wish more did. And I wish we were to a point where that was so consistent, we could look at something like multi-tenancy, because I do think there are enormous gains to be had from a fiscal perspective if you can run multi-tenant clusters, for example, or even multi-tenant workloads on a VM, and you can partition those in a way that's beneficial to everyone. Realistically speaking, we're not there, and I think and especially this will probably come up in the next topic, but the more complex these things become, the more critical it is to get your foundational skills right, and to have that really solid foundation so that you have the modularization in place to say, yeah, this thing is no longer serving me, I want to swap it out. So I have the ability now to take one platform and swap it out for another. But
okay,
again, reality.
Right. So here's a question for you. So where would the responsibility lie for all of these environments? Who takes care of dev, test, and staging and stuff like that?
I honestly think it's just part of the platform. So if we want to go with this kind of like hybrid solution architecture where you have your value streams and your business logic that they need to be able to deploy whenever, however, with the least amount of friction possible, and then you want to bring that kind of like platform engineering ideal underneath it so that that's a more scalable option, because you don't have the return on investment necessarily, or the visible return on investment for a platform. I think that is part of that responsibility of that shared service. My teams need to be able to deploy. They shouldn't care whether they're deploying to a dev environment or a prod environment. It should still feel relatively the same. Maybe not dev. Maybe let's go for like test or something like that, where something's a little bit more stable.
Right.
But they should be able to feel like that's a very similar experience, regardless.
Okay, so the other, I think, point that I picked up was it said, and again I quote, it says, a better way to consolidate multiple pre-production environments into a single shared one with app layer isolation through smart request dynamic routing. So essentially, this is kind of layer 7 app layer routing,
right?
Is what he's referring to, although it's not a direct, as I said earlier, it's not kind of, a direct quote of that, but that's essentially what he's talking about, layer 7 type of activity. So routing based on, things like HTTP headers, paths, other types of sort of metadata, whether it's, namespaces and whatever else, right? So isolation happens at the request level, not at the network level, I guess.
Okay.
Is the point.
And
then depending on what you're doing, depending on what your project is, if it's kind of conventional, just running in VMs, you've got things like API gateways and so on, and routing, tools that will help you with that. And if you're kind of, Kubernetes, containers, service mesh type of thing, then you're, I guess, within that world, within the Kubernetes cluster. So it's, namespaces and, things like that. Now, I did kind of look at this from a IP routing and so on, and I think that's not going to be enough. I think it needs to be at that sort of gateway level. It needs to be at that sort of, service mesh level, if that's what you're doing. Or as we said, if you are going to do it in a Kubernetes cluster and your app is container-based and it's running in containers and so on, then it's kind of potentially at the namespace level as well. Although
Yeah,
networking, I would have thought would be kind of more, with a network capability, not a namespace capability. But anyway.
yeah, I think, I mean, depending on what you're using for load balancing and the type of like algorithm that you would be using, that potentially in conjunction with some sort of WAF-ish type thing,
Mm.
that may also be able to give you a certain amount of granularity, because it would help you know where your traffic's originating from, but also make sure that it's firing off against the right path. Um,
Yeah.
a bit like canary testing almost.
Yeah, so all these kind of gateways and load balancers and so on would be it. And again, like I said, the article doesn't go into the details of that. Maybe there's a reason for that. Yeah, but anyway, that's all there. So I guess once you're kind of in that Kubernetes cluster, through the ingress controller or eBPF or whatever you're using, then you're within the cluster, and then maybe you can dictate how that works. Maybe you do want to do it with segregate with. I mean, namespace segregation would work. I presume that would be
I would assume
okay.
so. Yeah, I would assume so. I mean, but the other thing too is if you're in a non-prod environment, you're probably not also exposing this to the internet. So
No,
you're probably just
not
using it for
necessarily.
internal
Yeah.
purposes.
Yeah.
And so then maybe just basic routing would be okay, unless you need to start moving into some of that like security testing realm. And
So
then
the interesting thing for me here is because he talks, it talks about app layer sort of isolation. So really, it sounds like whatever the app is going to do, whatever the components of the application are, all the parts of the workload, they're going to take care of that aspect of it. It'll be what they're trying to achieve will be built into them in terms of how they, API, how they service mesh, how they namespace, and all those things. So rather than actually saying we've got our standard cloud infrastructure, we've got our networking, which is doing this isolation, and then we got our app. No, it doesn't sound like that. It's actually just saying just do it all on the app layer.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's actually not doing it at this middle networking layer.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like it's like regardless of what you do, it would be similar akin to running just lightweight containers so that people can do what they need to across the board.
Okay, cool. Right. So highlights from the article says traditional multi-stage testing environments clash with microservice agility, as we said earlier about architecture. Legacy environment progression causes bottlenecks and slow feedback cycles. Leading firms are consolidating dev, QA, and staging into a single shared baseline environment. So we mentioned a couple of those. App layer isolation enables independent parallel microservices testing. So that would be useful. And actually that you have, different meshes essentially within the same cluster doing their own thing, and the two never meet.
Yeah.
Sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is good. Tunable data isolation balances realistic data use with full test isolation needs. Okay. Sounds all right. Specialized environments remain for performance, security, and compliance, but can be ephemeral. So as we said earlier on, you could kind of run those, weird and wonderful sort of workloads that are specific or have special needs or whatever.
Yeah.
But they will kind of, be segregated from everything else.
I can get on board with all of that. I would love to see what it looks like in practice, and some of the more minute details. What does that translate to?
Yes.
And then I think based off of any given decision that you would make there would need to be some consideration of how you would test for things like security or proper networking and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot more in there, but like I said, it's not, unfortunately, a little bit light on detail. Yeah. And then I think the last thing they said was, hybrid environment strategies restore microservice independence. and the deployability promise as well. Yeah, so that's kind of the main key points. There's some more insights and so on, but that's a lot of details. I'll leave that. Check out the link in the description of the video, and lots of more information in the description as well. If not, it'll probably be on a pinned comment, as we said earlier, because YouTube is very stingy with the amount of characters that they actually allow.
Are they too stingy or are you too verbose? No.
I think I'm probably too much for YouTube. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's why.
Sorry.
Okay, so if you actually check out the Signa dot, and apologies again if I'm not using the right pronunciation for that, their website, it says ship microservices 10 times faster with unified testing, eliminate testing bottlenecks in your development workflows. Yeah, that's about it, really. I think that's kind of the gist of it. So doing stuff, doing your testing, building all those pre-production environments using kind of a similar architecture, bringing that up to speed with the production architectures that we want, like microservices and so on. And that kind of brings you consistency and accuracy and better feedback and so on. So I think that's the idea there. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. So let's move on to the second topic, which is the KPMG, the Futures Report 2025. Now, again,
The light reading.
This is, yeah, the light reading. Yeah, just a bit of bedtime reading. It'll certainly put me to sleep.
Oh, exactly.
But actually, it is very good. I did like it. It's got tons of data in there. And would you say, Sarah, that it's kind of at the C level? It's kind of a C-suite type
I think
of
it's
thing?
definitely the strategic level to help, I think, organizations, executives understand where is the convergence of all of these things and why perhaps that something doesn't feel terribly relevant may be actually quite relevant to the direction that they're heading, or strategically in a couple of years, how we kind of deal with some of these things.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, a couple guys from KPMG have written this. A Cliff Justice, who is the leader for enterprise innovation, I believe, and a Stephanie Kim, who is the head of signals and strategy at KPMG as well. I think they do sprinkle in some other execs along the way, but they're just kind of swanning in for a paragraph or two. Sorry, I haven't got the time. 3-hour lunch with IBM, so I gotta go. Sort of thing. Yeah, so that's the. So again, I think you have to download it. So I'll drop the link for the download. If anybody else needs it, I guess we can maybe drop it on an email. But all these things are usually easy to download. They're freely available. So the marketing blurb for the article said, "Unlock the insights," and this is a quote. Unlock the insights you need to lead in a rapidly evolving landscape. The 2025 Futures Report delves into 7 pivotal areas of innovation: artificial superintelligence, or ASI, computing infrastructure, quantum computing, space economy, digital assets, environmental resilience, and advanced manufacturing. Now, as we said, we're not going to be able to do all of that justice. We're kind of going to give you a slice of what we thought was interesting in the report. Sarah, what was kind of your take, apart from going, "Oh my God, that's just really..."
Oh my God, you're giving me 50 pages to read on a
50
Friday
pages
afternoon.
worth of,
Thanks.
Yeah. Exactly.
No, so what I really appreciated about the article is, yeah, it's about all these different technical and like technical innovations, but it also breaks it down and says these are the 4 areas that you need to be aware of when looking at any of these particular changes or innovations. And so they also go, okay, there's the social side. So, things, how do humans interact with these different types of things? There's the pure technical side.
Yeah.
How are all of these things kind of elevating each other to bring it to the next level? Economically speaking, what is this going to do for any particular region or GDP? But also, what is the value of any of these innovations? And the one that I found really interesting particularly with, I think, the global situation today, was the political aspect.
Mm.
So where do we stand? I think, again, we talk about the technical sovereignty. So who owns any given piece of technology, and to what extent does it matter that a country has the right to the patent? Up until this point, it's largely been about data. I'm starting to see customers and various clients start to evoke, do we actually want software that's made in the US, for example? Um, so bringing that and evoking that, I think also when you start looking at like cyber warfare, that all of these things become really quite pertinent.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I think just to answer that one, I don't think we can do without any sort of US software. Otherwise, we'll be just left with SAP. Oh, the horror.
No, and for the record, I have now been on the European continent for so long that I don't even know if I qualify as an American anymore. It's just the accent that remains, I think. But
You got to
it's,
work on that.
yeah.
You need to adopt a Cockney accent.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Ah, come on, love, you can do it. It's not a problem. You'll pick it
Things I
up in
won't be
no
doing on
time.
a live podcast.
Excellent. Okay, so yeah, so as we said, the report sort of outlines a transformative era shaped by those converging four forces that Sarah mentioned: so technology, economy, society, and geopolitics. And I guess the bottom line is kind of saying, urging leaders to proactively shape the future amid all this sort of disruption. And we are kind of going through a lot of disruption. This is probably the most disruption I've kind of experienced in the industry, both from the upcoming tech as well as outside forces
Mm.
as well. So highlights from the report: AI is evolving towards artificial superintelligence, demanding new governance and new workforce models. Computing infrastructure must adapt to AI's energy and scalability demands with hybrid energy smart designs. Quantum computing's imminent breakthroughs offer vast potential but require preparation for cybersecurity risks. The space economy is democratizing with private-public collaboration driving growth and innovation. Digital assets are reshaping finance through institutional adoption, regulatory clarity, and blockchain AI/AI convergence. Environmental resilience is critical as climate risks impact supply chains, assets, and financial markets. And then advanced manufacturing is undergoing a policy-driven revival focused on automation, reshoring, and sustainability. So yes, I mean, I guess kind of a lot of that is true. Insights. There's a lot more insights in the report, guys. So again, like I said, we're not going to be able to really do the content justice. But there was one interesting on the artificial superintelligence, the ASI section. It talked about kind of two different roadmaps for when we achieve AGI and when we achieve ASI.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and one of them was a little bit more conservative, so kind of pushed it out to maybe like the 2080s or something like that. And I think the other one is kind of a little bit more immediate, and so on. I think we're going to hit AGI when OpenAI announced their next model, because the previous models, the O models, pretty much or nearly achieved. At least they ticked some of the AGI boxes anyway. So that I think is a lot closer than ASI, and we're seeing how AI agents, and we'll talk a little bit about that in the next topic. We're seeing how that's kind of bringing in some of those elements of what we'd expect at least AGI to be.
Yeah, I love AI, generally speaking. I did some coursework fairly recently, and they went into talking about AI and how is that going to shape the future.
Mm,
And one of the things that they called out was that it's also that the things that AI tends to do really, really well are
mm,
things that humans don't typically do so well.
yeah.
And the things that humans do really, really well, and that's synthesizing of various knowledge from different inputs, AI doesn't typically do quite as well.
Mm,
Um, and so I think there's a really large opportunity in the tech sector, and whether that's, infrastructure, whatever,
mm.
or just more broadly speaking of change agents innovation to kind of hit that intersection and really make some huge change. Um, and hopefully, I really do maybe a little more optimistic on this one. I'm not really sure why, but
Well, I mean, like I said, the report talks about ASI kind of split. I think it's kind of heading in that direction. It's kind of trying to predict that. And it says AI is progressing from narrow applications to sort of autonomous general intelligence systems capable of surpassing human cognition.
Mhm.
This shift will redefine industries, labor markets, and societal norms. Organizations must balance rapid adoption of current AI tools with preparation for the transformative leap towards ASI, emphasizing ethical frameworks, governance, workforce reskilling to mitigate the risks of misalignment and misuse. So yeah, I think it's not really, I don't think it's anything kind of super unknown,
Mm.
to quote a Soundgarden album title, purely by accident. But I have been listening to a couple of their tracks actually from the album
Now
recently.
you know why.
But
No.
but now you know why. Yeah, it's a kind of a Freudian slip kind of thing. But no, I mean seriously, I think there isn't a huge amount there that's not kind of you know it's not kind of academic, if you like, or sort of relatively known in terms of
No,
uh, where
exactly.
those
And
things will
also,
go.
it's also just we've been through enough industrial revolutions to know that this is how this works at this point. So it's
And crashes.
no, and it will because it's all cyclical.
Yes.
It's funny. I remember doing my master's not so long ago, actually, about 10 years ago, and one of the things my professor at the time, John Salen, he works for GDIT now. He was saying, yeah, next industrial revolution, you're going to see it in the next 7 years.
Mm,
Like clockwork, like
yeah.
absolute clockwork. And it's all part of it's just that that is the cycle. And we know that there's kind of 100 years between each one, and each one brings new economic growth and new
Mm,
opportunity. It becomes a question of how are we going to use it, but also how are we going to make sure that you maintain human rights across the board.
yes.
I think that that's the big question. And also we as humans, we follow patterns. So these behaviors that AI can pick up on and mimic and act human, make decisions, they are still pattern based. They are still mathematically kind of relevant to all of
Mm,
this. So when people start using things like super intelligence, I always take it with a little bit of a grain of salt because yes, it's super intelligent. Yes, it can process data way faster than I can, and it can hone in on the various patterns that I may use. But does it have the same sentience as a human? I have my doubts about that.
yeah. There's lots. I mean, there's lots. I think it's just the intellect part of it that will be could be potentially surpassed. But I think
Hmm.
everything else, I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see how
Or
we'll see
will
how
we?
the
No.
well, maybe not. Depending which roadmap, which roadmap we look at, the conservative one or the slightly more concerning one.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yes, there's actually a really good chart in the report on that. The other bit that I picked up on that particular frontier was on the ASI stuff. It said a strategic takeaway I picked up which is quite interesting. It said, treat today's proven AI as the main game. Use focused models that solve specific problems, deploy them efficiently, blah, 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 and build robust data practices, so clean data pipelines. So I like that because I think that is actually where I've been advocating kind of the current crop of AIs and LLMs will go. That's how we kind of implement them in businesses to solve specific problems, not the kind of the general purpose, sort of chat GPTs and co-pilots of the world. It's kind of more, they'll be focused on to fix specific problems in our business processes, essentially.
Oh, yeah. Can I rant for like
Yeah,
30 seconds?
absolutely. Go for it.
AI, more than ever, is why businesses have to know why they do things and what they want to achieve by it. I
Right.
have seen now for years and years and years and years, you walk into a boardroom, you say, okay, you want to take this approach, you want to use DevOps, and we're talking like small stakes when we're talking DevOps, we're talking
Yeah.
and platform engineering. Like that is your infrastructure. It's
Yeah.
shouldn't be that big deal. It's not the moneymaker. It's not the innovator. We're not talking small stakes when we're looking at AI. We're talking about something that's hugely costly that could potentially have an amazing return on your business. All the innovation in the world, allow people to do things that people are good at, build an incredible culture. But you have to know why you're doing it. And if you don't know why you're doing it, stop doing it.
Yes.
Because it's expensive. It yeah. The why thing. It comes back to why
Yeah.
every single
Every
time.
single time. Absolutely agree. Okay, so that was the ASI one, the computing infrastructure. Says as you said, the exponential increase in AI computing requirements is putting a strain on energy supplies and cooling, and semiconductor supply chains as well. So, I mean, I always thought that demand can demand whatever it likes, but it's always down to the supply, right? Supply always wins. If I can supply you this, yes, you can demand whatever you like, but it's not gonna that's not gonna translate into anything tangible until actually I can supply it to you,
Yeah.
or the supply can catch up or meet the demand, or actually just doesn't care about the demand. It will just supply what it can,
I mean,
as much
if
as
you're
it
talking
can.
about electricity and energy, there's only so much that, at least with our current
Yeah.
setup and our current capabilities, that we can supply. The semiconductor thing, I think, is an interesting one
Mm,
because so much of that can be geopolitical.
mm,
And there's certain chip companies right now that are saying, no, I won't have anything to do with China. We won't sell to China.
yeah.
And conversely, that's obviously bilateral. But are we doing ourselves an injustice there because we're the ones creating our own shortages and issues
Mm,
because of geopolitical reasons? I don't know if that's correct. I don't know if it's not. I'm not a politician. It's not my space. I don't play in it. But, you know, there are limitations. But do we also, as humanity, need to look at why those are there? And in the end, are they going to be worth it?
yeah. And yeah, I mean, it goes on to talk about sort of AI native infrastructure, which we kind of think everybody's been talking about, specialized chips, modular data centers, hybrid cloud edge models, and then, as we said, prioritizing sort of energy efficiency and resilience. Um, yeah, so I'm fine, I think, with that. Again, not a huge amount that we haven't picked up elsewhere from sort of other sources
Mm.
as well on that. Okay, so on the quantum computing, I don't like this idea of a hybrid quantum classical computing model.
You don't? Why
Uh,
not?
I think I just want to go from one to the other and not have the two running in the same box, kind of thing. Um,
Um, Would they be running in the same box, or would you just be using both resources?
I don't know. I mean, this sounds like it's going to be running in the same, I mean, but like CPUs and GPUs, and now got TPUs and whatever, and that's fine. It's kind of all classical based, but yeah, I don't know. It just sounds a bit strange. To me, it sounds a little bit odd. I don't know. I mean, maybe kind of I'll get proven wrong about that, or kind of shown the advantage of doing that. But just kind of quantum computing itself, it will enable. I mean, again, Ripple says it's going to enable lots of breakthroughs in optimization, drug discovery, cryptography, material science, and so on. And yes, we also know that it poses imminent risk to existing encryption standards, and organizations should leverage quantum as a service. Sure, yes, because they're going to be massive and expensive, and not many of them to get hold of, at the beginning. Once they actually become, as as prolific in terms of how they operate and work as as sort of conventional classical computers. And again, geopolitics will probably intensify, with, it says, with major powers investing heavily in shaping international cooperation and competition.
Yeah. Nothing new there. I think it's the same with all innovation.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, yeah, and then we'll just hit on the last one, which is the advanced manufacturing, because there's obviously environmental stuff, as we said. There's digital assets, and there is, what was the other one? Space economy as well. But like I said, we're not going to be able to, kind of cover all of those. But in terms of manufacturing, I think we've already seen a lot of that sort of, the bring it back home and kind of, let's build all in the US or wherever it happens to be. To the embargoes and limitations and what have you, to kind of foreign, or to competing, countries like in China or whatever it is. And now I guess it's okay, so we've got it back. Now we need to ramp up, right? I mean, Nvidia's kind of the most valued company in the world now, at $3.5 trillion or nearly $4 trillion or whatever it is valuation, because they can't make enough of the damn things. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about supply and demand, right? Or that kind of thing. So I don't know. It's things like the CHIPS Act and the Inflation Reduction Act and various other things are all kind of going to shape that a lot more. Now there's kind of back home, so to speak, and then as I said earlier, as I've covered, the likes of Intel and some of these other players are just not there. They're just not able to. I mean, they brought out what did they bring out? The Gaudi chip or something? I was like, who cares?
I mean, if it doesn't work, then if it can't balance the workloads, then it doesn't really matter.
I don't know.
My biggest concern with the repatriation of a lot of these things is, again, are we going to do ourselves and humanity a disservice by not having enough of them, and that not having enough of them being of our own making? So it's kind of like, you made your own bed. Now you're kind of left with it. And I was listening to a podcast the other day. I wish I remembered who it was. But he was talking about, there's a concern that these chips might fall into the wrong hands. But what about not having the knowledge behind it and the people who know how to manage these different types of assets, and then not having the competitivity to drive that innovation and make sure that you still have that cutting edge ability. So, are we creating a lack of knowledge by simply trying to stop the competition altogether?
Right.
So that was also a really interesting take on the repatriation of some of these assets.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think it's not kind of the whole report is not sort of overtly,
Mm.
um, you know, sort of uh, new in any way. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's actually a really good compilation and summary of all of those things. If a CIO wants to come in and sit down, or a CEO wants to come in and sit down and have a quick read of and just catch up, like over a weekend, read the report.
Yeah.
Read this report. It actually really brings you up to date. But there is also nuggets, like I said, in there that are extremely useful, I think, as well. There's the maps for AGI and ASI, and taking I think just taking two different approaches to that, as I think is very good in the report. I think they've done a great job of that. Normally these things tend to be very, directive and very opinionated and so on, but actually kind of saying, well, actually there's two trains of thought here. There's two trains of thought in terms of where people think this is going, and here's both of them. I think that's a really good way to actually approach it. So yeah, go and check it out, guys. Really good reports. And like I said, we can't really do all of it justice. There's a ton of information in there, but it's really cool, very useful. Hey, if you are enjoying the content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That would really help me out. Thank you. Let's move on to our third topic. This was the automation versus RPA versus AI agents. Now we picked on maybe one of the articles by Rakesh Goel, who's a prolific writer on LinkedIn, and sort of especially in this sort of Gen AI space. I think he's written some books and stuff. I'm not sure he does a newsletter or something, but he does kind of put out lots of stuff. So check him out. I'll drop a link to the article in the description of the video. But yeah, what's your? I mean, we kind of wanted to talk about a little bit about automation, define what that is, define RPA, define sort of AI agents or AI agent automation.
Yeah.
What's your view on those three, Sarah?
Yeah, so I find it really interesting because, you go through LinkedIn on any given day and you can have a post, one person's like, Agentic AI, totally useless, never going to happen. We're not going to see it in our lifetime. And then literally the one right underneath it is like, Agentic AI changed my life. Like organizations are going to be all over this. And you're kind of like, well, where do we stand in all of this? And
Yeah.
then I was also like, well, what is agentic AI? And like, what are the business? Why would I bring this into an organization? Are there any benefits? Is it still too young to kind of be using? So then going through like articles like from Rakesh to look at what are the difference between just normal automation, something like RPA, the UiPaths of this world, Twilio, and then agentic AI, and also understand what are some of the pitfalls that you might encounter with any of them and the benefits of the others. So a lot of us have basic automation have been doing forever. The bash scripts of the world. I just need to run a cron job or something like that. A batch that runs at the same time every single day. It does exactly the same thing. I just need to push a button, execute. It does these steps. Happy days, right? Then you have the RPA, robotic process automation. And that's a little bit more intuitive. So it's going to go in and use some AI, some machine learning to execute a task. And you tell it what task you want it to execute based off of usually a UI or something like that. Challenge with RPA at that point is if you remove an element from your UI, for example, it's going to start looking for that element. It's not going to recognize it. The whole thing's just going to come crashing down. So then the benefit of agentic AI then becomes I can go into a system and say, I need you to go through the photos on my phone and anything that appears to be from a business trip, I need you to upload it into my expenses and hit send on that. And provided it has access to all of these things, it can do that computation a lot like generative AI, right? The similar technology behind it. So it becomes a lot smarter. Problem is, it's a black box. You don't
Mm,
really know what's going on. And so, do you want that on highly sensitive systems? Maybe not. Do I
mm,
want to give an agent just total control of anything? Definitely not. And that's where things like MCP become really important
mm,
because that MCP acts as kind of that home base for things to come back in. Um, and so I love how Rakesh breaks it down here about the difference between RPA and the AI agents. Um, but also just then what are the benefits of these different things.
mm.
And on one of his posts, I assume you're going to link it in your comments.
Yeah,
He
somewhat.
actually he actually has this great little diagram of
Yes.
how it all works and how it all ties together, so you can kind of see the differences, at least in the process of
Yeah.
how all of this comes together. But I think this again circles back around to what we were talking about earlier when it comes to AI, just generally speaking, and how that benefits humans and how you have that kind of like compiled intelligence, if you will,
Mm,
that's the human. Okay, I want to get this done. These are the things that I want to deliver, and the AI, which is really good at finding those patterns and being
yeah.
like, okay, this is, we know that based off of your system, this is how you like things done.
Right.
So I do believe that there's a lot of room. And again, if we take it back down to even things like, um, well, you and I were joking about networking earlier, and just how terrible networking is. You even have the whole episode on cloud networking, right? Um,
Yeah.
so does anybody really want to do that? I don't. I hate it.
Mm, yeah.
And I'm done filling in spreadsheets. So if I can get my system based off of my model to say, this is my security posture, this is what I want my blast radius to be. These are the controls I want to be sure are in place, the counter controls. I want to make sure that it's based off of this security protocol. And I think that my application is going to be this big, but please allow room for auto scaling vertically, horizontally. If I could get that tomorrow, I would be so happy, and I would have so many engineers who could be delivering work that is value added as opposed to just going through spreadsheets and like typing in IP addresses. Um, Network overlapping, IP overlaps, like they become a thing of the past. And that is a gorgeous,
Right.
gorgeous thing.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think, we've kind of started with automation, and as you said, it's kind of, you know, trying to perform those sort of tasks with minimal sort of human intervention,
Mhm.
like, I don't know, auto sending emails when you're sort of on holiday or something.
Exactly.
Infrastructure as code,
Yeah,
that type of automation kind of fits into that as well.
completely. Yeah.
Um, RPA's come along, kind of giving us a way to maybe kind of, mimic some human actions, as you said, kind of form filling, that
Hmm.
type of stuff. But if one of those, um, you know, um, sort of entries in the form kind of changes slightly, then
Exactly.
the
It's
whole
like,
thing, the
whoa,
whole
what are
thing's like,
we?
whoa, it's all crashed, it's all done. So for repetitive stuff, rule-based kind of tasking and sort of data entries is good for that.
Yeah.
And then AI agents, kind of where we are now in 2025, obviously the year of AI agents. That we're kind of adding a lot more sort of capability to that. And as you said, things like the model context protocol or MCP kind of coming in and sort of trying to standardize in terms of how AI agents can communicate
Mhm.
with each other using a sort of a standards approach. Although obviously there's other protocols out there that are emerging. There's about 4 or 5 at the moment
Mhm.
that are out there. But that sort of whole thing is, um, yes, has a lot more sort of autonomy in terms of how it works. It's hell bent on that particular task to achieve that particular task for you. And then this brings in with it things like memory integration, reasoning, as you said, protocols, and the ability to use other tools. That's the other
Mhm.
important thing with AI agents. And I think that is now perceived as being the kind of some of the elements, or most of the elements that will take it to agentic AI, as you said.
Yeah.
And agentic AI is kind of the ultimate goal, at least kind of in this path anyway,
Mhm.
which is to really have, that very autonomous system, as you said, that's kind of dealing with a lot more stuff for you, and it's making its own decisions, and it's self-sufficient, and really, probably doesn't need humans to, any human intervention or interaction.
No, I mean, I would still want to make sure there's adequate monitoring over that and that it's behaving in a way that, we would expect it to behave, that there's no anomalous behavior or anything.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was playing with some Gen AI at some point, and it completely rewrote his load balancer for him. So it figured out how to bypass the load balancer and do its own thing. Those are probably behaviors that you don't want to have happening in a production environment.
Yeah.
And things to watch out for. But in terms of having a consistent delivery based off of automation and smart automation that can mimic human behavior.
Yeah.
I think that that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, and I mean, weights and alignment, I guess, are kind of the things that are used in when it comes to sort of training and those models. But I mean, I have read articles. I think Anthropic is actually one of the leaders who is doing any of that sort of testing. To see what is the model thinking of. How did it, what are the steps that it took to actually reach this conclusion?
Yeah.
And if I tell it something like this that might be detrimental to its existence, how is it going to kind of behave?
Yeah.
There was actually a couple of articles on that. I'll see if I can actually find them and attach them.
I would love to read those too. If you,
they're quite interesting ones.
I can imagine.
Yeah, they came out. I think where was I? I think I was at the AWS Summit in London earlier this year, and then I was live streaming, and then the topic of AI agents came up, and that article I'd read had just come out at that point. So yeah, that was interesting. But they've done a couple of white papers, I think, in that space. Yeah, Anthropic are very good at that.
Yeah, that would be really interesting.
Yeah. So kind of automation. This is kind of what we're trying to really look at. This is really the main idea of this article. There's obviously lots of stuff out there. I will include Rakesh's article in the description of the video. We've kind of wanted to see how or the progression. Again, Sarah, thank you for kind of pointing it out in this way, because I love the fact that we've kind of again put 3 levels on it. We've got the traditional automation, we've got RPA, now sort of AI agents, and then going towards agentic AI.
Yeah,
I think in the future, I think that's very cool.
Yeah, well, hopefully so.
Indeed, yeah. Okay, all right. So I think we're there. So Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been really fantastic doing this episode with you. Great insights.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate you spending the time with us. I hope you've actually enjoyed your first Cloud State of Play episode.
I have absolutely enjoyed my first Cloud State of Play. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Okay.
Hopefully see you soon.
Thank you. Yeah. So all the links, guys, will be, as we said, in the description of the video, and then some. There's lots of those. Please do subscribe to the channel to support me. Drop in any comments what you think about all these topics and so on. Are you doing any of them? Are you thinking about doing any of them, and so on? Share the video and all that kind of lovely stuff. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me. You may also want to check out some of the other videos on this channel. Bye for now.